There are different results of these cases, and a lot of it depends on what type of case it is. A DUI can be anything from getting pulled over for some type of vehicle code violation to being on the side of the road and the cops come in to do a welfare check, to accidents with injuries, DUIs with prior DUIs within the last 10 years, misdemeanors, felonies. Felonies are actually the most difficult DUI cases to defend and to negotiate because there's so much more at stake and you're facing so much of a stiffer penalty. But I'll talk about, on a more like a first offense DUI, what kind of a plea deal could there be? You could end up, if you decide not to go to a jury trial, which is your right to go or not to go, ending up on a probation, which is typically 3 years for a DUI. It can be 3 to 5 years, but in Marin County, it's typically 3 years. And there's a fine which comes out to close to $2,000. You typically would have to do 2 days on the sheriff's work program. You might not have to do both days or any time, depending on the time that you were taken into jail. If you were taken into jail, there's credit issues. A DUI school, which is typically a 3-month school, unless you blew at or over a 0.20 alcohol level, then you probably have to do a 9-month school. There may be restitution if there was an accident to whoever, car or property was damaged. Those are typically what we're looking at with the terms of a plea deal. And also, while you're on that probation, you have to obey all laws and not pick up a new DUI and not drive with alcohol in your system, any measurable amount of alcohol in your system, or you could be in violation of that probation, in which case the maximum penalty on a first DUI is 6 months in jail. And we do half time on that in California. So the most that they could give you is 3 months in jail, minus any credit you already have. And typically, unless you do something pretty bad, they're not going to try and max you out like that. Your lawyer can typically negotiate something on a probation violation. So those are, your potential plea deals on a regular DUI. If the alcohol level is low enough, or if there are just some real big holes in the case that give the prosecution proof issues, and you still don't want to take your case to a jury trial, then a lot of times what we can do is get the charges reduced to a wet reckless, which would be a shorter probation, a 1-year probation, a much smaller fine. It's usually, half the fine or less of a regular DUI. And the DUI school, instead of a 3-month school, could be a 12-hour school, which is basically versus the 30 to 32-hour 3-month school. But if you don't win the hearing with the DMV, and if you get suspended by DMV on the separate administrative hearing procedure, then you would have to do the 3-month school in order to be eligible for a restricted license, which would either be a work license or an interlock license. And if you do lose the DMV hearing, typically you're looking at a minimum of a 4-month suspension or a restriction that is somewhere between 4 to 6 months, depending on which restriction you choose. And on a regular DUI, it's actually a 6-month suspension, and a restriction would be anywhere from 6 months to 12 months, depending on if you do an ignition interlock device or do a work restricted license. There's a lot of information here, and I'm more than happy to discuss it with anyone who wants to call my office. You can talk to me pretty much any day of the week, unless I'm, in hearings, meetings, trials, or whatever all day. But I make myself available. We have long hours. We do return calls on weekends, evenings. We're very good at getting back to people. We're usually very quick at getting back to people. And we're here to help.